I'm Tegan Taylor, and this is Toastie Talks, where we're going to talk toasties and also mental health. I'm coming to you today from Brisbane, the lands of the Turrbal and Yuggera people. I pay my respects to the land and their elders, past, present, and emerging. And I, in other parts of my life, present a podcast called Coronacast with Dr. Norman Swan, who might make an appearance later today. And we answer people's questions about how to navigate this really horrible time that we've been living through with this pandemic. And we focus a lot on the physical health side of things, but mental health is also really important. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today as everyone's coming out of lockdown, how to navigate this next phase and just how much our lives are going to change. And the idea of the toasted sandwich is, I mean, who doesn't love a toasty? We're sharing the love over a toasted sandwich, and you can join us by sharing your sandwich ideas, photos, and just thoughts in general with the hashtag Toastie Talks. But today I have a really important special guest who is the fruit nerd, fellow toasty lover, Thanh Truong, a produce expert, fruiterer, and he's just passionate about helping people have great food experiences. And Thanh, I'm pretty sure you also have pretty strong ideas about whether fruit belongs on a toastie.
I do. I guess it's whether you like savoury or sweet food. But look, I am the fruit nerd, so I have to say fruit in a toastie is a yay from me.
Well, I'm going to show you my toastie in a second. But before we get into that, you're in Melbourne. So you're coming out. We've just come out of a pretty hectic lockdown period. What was the first thing you did when lockdown lifted that you weren't allowed to do before?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I'm broadcasting from Wurundjeri land. And the first thing that I really wanted to do was see family. I think that's been very much the consensus across the board with everybody who's been in a hard lockdown. I mean, we've been in over 250 days of lockdown and not being able to see, parents for a couple of months. It's been pretty heartbreaking. And I think people have reassessed their priorities. And even though, my family live, just 15 minutes away, I haven't really been able to sit down and have a meal with my mum. So that was really nice last week.
What sort of things are you looking forward to over the next couple of months?
Look, the next couple of months is going to be, a really interesting period. I think we are heading into the unknown, and I've always thought about, how we can best prepare for, life post-pandemic. But really, it's just we're always going through change. Nobody can stop change, and I think we should always just accept that. But of course, the next few months, I'm waiting to get a haircut. Firstly, the hairdressers are booked out for weeks. I've got a mop on my head. I'm pretty embarrassed. I should have worn a hat. But look, I think just seeing friends, seeing family, heading into a new norm, but also, I guess, the things that we took for granted before, we're going to have them now. But I feel that, as somebody who has kids, I've got 2 kids under 2, I've pretty much been restricted to home. But it would be nice for them to also see family and friends and to get a new sense of normal. I really feel for, the children of today. And it's funny. I just talked about how we went to see my parents, and we also went to see my mother-in-law and my daughter, Rayla. She's 6 months old, and she's pretty much seen nobody except us. And the first time her grandmother picked her up, she was just bawling in tears because she's just had that social disengagement, has never really seen anybody except mum and dad. And we're going to really work hard to make sure that, that phases out. And kids are very tolerant, but yeah, that's just one small thing that, I guess post lockdown, we're looking towards making sure that our kids have more normality.
Yeah, it's funny. There's been so many things that we've been looking forward to coming out of lockdown, but there's going to be stuff that's going to take time to readjust to as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, and how about, I know you're up in Brisbane, and you guys have been going through a bit of lockdown. And do you feel as though it hasn't affected you guys as much as the southern states? I know that's a hard thing to say, but I feel like there's still some things that you guys would be like, oh no, we couldn't do that before, and we're in all these snap lockdowns.
Yeah, I feel like we've been protected. I mean, it would be a pretty bratty of a Queenslander to complain about lockdowns when our colleagues down south have had it so much worse. But definitely the distance from family, I think everyone's feeling that. Even the states where we're living without so many restrictions, we're still separated from the people we love if they don't live nearby. So, of course, if you're struggling with this, dear audience members, you can call Lifeline anytime on 13 11 14. There are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's other support services also available if you have a look in the comments section below. But Tan, I'm really keen to see what the fruit nerd would put on a toasty. Can you please give us a talk? Because if you don't follow Tan on Instagram, you should. And he's been Instagramming all morning about what he should put on the toasty. Take the poll. And I know what I voted for. And I'm interested to see whether I made the cut or not.
Okay, so I'm going to make pan con tomate. And a lot of people
That's
think
what I
about
voted for.
it's like the the Avo Vegemite on toast of Spain. And I've got some bread from an Iranian baker, and I love this bread. It's just really nice and light and fluffy, but also a little bit sweet. And I'm going to put it in an air fryer. So
amazing.
I reckon the best way to make a toasty is to air fry it, because you get so the thing about toasties are, and I'm just going to put a timer here just so I don't forget. 1 minute. I feel as though the best part of a toasty is good food starts with good produce. That's my motto. So just simplicity. I've just got some tomatoes, some garlic, some salt, and some really good bread. But I think for me, you have to eat the toasty at that right moment where it's crispy. The bread is crispy and fluffy, and it's warm but not cold. It's kind of like hot and sizzly, and by the time you get to your last bite, it hasn't gone cold yet. So I think the most important thing about a toasty is actually the temperature.
That's so funny you should say that, because I'm not allowed to cook a toasty in the studio where I come to you from Toastie Talks. So I had to make mine earlier so that we didn't set off the smoke alarms in the ABC building. My toasty that I made is definitely not ideal eating temperature anymore, but it was when I made it this morning, which we can have a look at right now. Okay, so today we're going to try some more of your suggestions. The one that I said last week, which was apple and cheese and walnuts, I'm very keen to try. This one came from actually more than one of you. Claire and Anos both said this. So we called Tan, the fruit nerd, ahead of time to be like, what kind of apple should we use? And he said, probably use a bit of both. The red apple for the sweetness and the green apple for some tartness. Make it nice and cheesy. I once heard, we had an American friend who he used to say of an apple pie, a pie without cheese is like a hug without a squeeze. So apple and cheese together, I think at least he would give it the tick of approval. Some sultanas, some walnuts, and Anos says cracked pepper, which I'm just excited for this whole situation. I think it's going to be like a pie. That's how I'm thinking of it. Come on, baby, in you go. And the other suggestion, I'm less sold on this one, is peanut butter and cheese. So that one came from Carlos, but Michael then wrote in and said, trust him. So, okay, Michael and Carlos, we're trusting you. Peanut butter and cheese it is. Give this a bit of a stir. Could be starting a massive trend here. So, all right, peanut butter and cheese. Trusting you guys. In it goes. Okay, so I have high hopes for this apple toasty. I hope it doesn't let me down. Really hot. Yes, we are onto something here. This could be a new favourite. Peanut butter and cheese. I want to love it, but I don't. But maybe you should try one at home and see if you think differently, because it could be for some people. I just don't think it's for me. So that was my toasty experience. I can definitely recommend I wanted to call it like an apple pie. It was like apple with nuts and raisins, and there was cheese in there. Cheese was basically just holding it all together. Wasn't so sure about the peanut butter one though. Did you have a favorite?
It looks like the apple did so. It looks like the apple did well though.
Well, that was because of your advice earlier today. Show us your toasty. How's it going?
Okay, all right. This is where we're at now. I've just got it out of the air fryer. Now it's nice and crispy, but a bit fluffy, right? A bit fluffy here, and that's what I like. Bit of drizzle of olive oil.
You're so much fancier than me.
Okay, we've got the tomato. Oh, actually, before that, this is the trick that the Spanish told me. You don't eat the garlic; you actually rub it. So you actually get your garlic and you just rub it, and it gives that garlic aroma without making your next conversation an unpleasant one with whoever's
That's why we're all wearing
a couple
masks.
of meters from you these days.
It's not for COVID reasons.
That's right.
It's for garlic breath reasons.
All right, so I've just got that crushed garlic. Now this crushed garlic is pretty special. I mean, like, I try to source produce from everywhere. These are locally grown, but it's almost like a over-ripened tomato. And I love over-ripened tomatoes because if they're either Romas, you let Romas just ripen on the table, they get extra sweet, but you don't want them to get too soft. But with this toasty, I'm actually going to do one more thing. I've actually got some microherbs. Now, the microherb industry has been completely decimated in Victoria and New South Wales because of the pandemic. Majority, I'd say 99% of this produce that is grown is for hospitality. We do see it on smashed avocado toast, and some people do push the microherbs to the side, but they are now moving in towards just becoming a lot of flavor. And I love them because they're completely different. Even though this is rocket, it tastes kind of almost only like a 20% of a mature rocket because it hasn't fully grown yet. And so it's got all these different flavors. It's got a more earthy, nutty notes. And I'm just going to sprinkle a bit on top. Just go back here, just grab some. And, sometimes it is hard to purchase these because they are just for the hospitality industry, but some greengrocers do stock them. That is my pan con tomate. I'm going to go for a taste.
Insane. Well, while you have a bite, we actually asked our audience what they would have on a toasty, how they're feeling about coming out of lockdown. And Amanda Dell has been deep in the comments finding out all about that. So, Amanda, tell us what you're hearing people say.
Hi, everyone. This week we asked about your feelings around Australia opening up and what might be in store over the next few months. And the answer depends on which state you're from. If you've just come out of a long lockdown, then there's still a lot of happiness. People are happy to be seeing their friends. They're overjoyed about being able to go out for dinner and participate in those activities that they love. Some have even told us that they're forgetting about the restrictions lifting and wish they'd made plans for tonight. But if you're in one of those states that hasn't had an outbreak, hasn't had long lockdowns, so WA, South Australia, Queensland, the Northern Territory and Tasmania, then the feeling's quite different. People are quite anxious. We heard that a lot. I'm worried. I'm anxious about what's going to happen. They're worried about people being able to freely come into their state and into their area, particularly if they're from one of those smaller towns that really hasn't seen any cases at all. And they might be worried about how many vaccinations have taken place in their town. Sheila from the Sunshine Coast was talking about Bundaberg when she said that she's excited to travel again, but she's wary of the consequences. That summed up a lot of the feelings of a lot of people. But generally, there's excitement about being able to see family and friends. Everyone wants that. So many people have been separated by those border barriers. So they want to see family, they want to see friends, but some are asking, can we just hold off for a little while? Can we just see what happens? They just want to know how the cases are going to go, how quickly they're going to rise. So there is a lot of concern in those non-lockdown states. The lockdown states are saying, let us out there. We want to visit our families. We want to visit our friends. We want to take those trips that we've planned. I think that Stephanie probably summed up all of our feelings when she said, time will tell. No one has a crystal ball. Let's just hope that family and friends can be together, businesses can make a buck, and we can all have a happy Christmas. Doesn't that sound like a good thing? Sounds great to me.
So you're in Melbourne. Do you relate to those sorts of things that people are saying in the comments there?
Absolutely, like all of them. And I guess one thing that I love about the industry and working in the market is, and it's really humbling, is that I see people from all walks of life every day, from the very affluent suburbs to really low socio-demographic areas. And everybody has had different thoughts of COVID, how to deal with it, and sometimes people have just had a really bad day, and you just don't know what they're going through in their lives. They might have had a lost loved one, or whatnot. And I think, we all just take it at our own pace, but everybody's definitely keen to see family, and there's a nervousness, but there's also hope. And I think that's the difference. It's really funny because today, 1 year ago, was the third day that we had 0 cases in Victoria, and we were hurraying that it was 3 days of no cases, and we knew that there was going to be a new normal. But today it's different. There's thousands of cases, but there's a sense of hope that we're not going to have restrictions, and we do have to move towards a new life. And I guess that gives a lot of people a lot of anxiety, and especially for those with young ones or immunocompromised. But look, I do really hope that people have a stronger relationship with food in their lives. The pandemic has caused something that we have never seen before in the history of food, and that is that people have had to cook at home, and people have had to renew their relationship with food. And for me, that's a real blessing. And I hope that moving forward in the next few months, people see that new hybrid of, maybe I will cook a little bit more at home because I have upskilled, and maybe I know how to make sourdough or some kind of omelette. How about you, Tegan? Have you learned to cook anything new during the pandemic?
I really liked watching my daughters learn to cook. My 10-year-old, when we had a lockdown here in Queensland, she took over the entire kitchen for about 3 hours, but she cooked a zucchini loaf by herself, which is something we would never have had time to do when normal times, school pickups, drop-offs, birthday parties, all that sort of thing. The place looked like a bomb had hit it at the end of it, but she was so proud of herself. And so I totally relate to what you're saying about there's something about that forced slowdown that allows you time to sort of get in with food. But also I think there's probably maybe a desire, I don't know, you can speak as a Melbourneite, of wanting to hold on to a little bit of that slower pace after reopening.
Yeah, like as a student of, I'm a master's student of food systems and gastronomy, and one thing that we did look at is research that happened post GFC and how food was interacted with post GFC. And what people saw was that a lot of people were having financial hardship, and so buying the option of food which was of a cheaper option was the only option people had. I think the difference between the pandemic today is that people have had to upskill and learn how to cook different things, whilst in the GFC before, they didn't have that. And so we've never really seen this before. And I think about the Spanish flu, and people didn't have international foods back then. There wasn't a lot of international trade. And so we're really seeing something that we've never seen before. And I'm really fascinated to see what happens in the next few months and the coming year or 2 years. And we'll be looking back in history going, well, people have really changed their food habits and food diets. And how did that change, and how can we work for the better if this happens again? So I'm really positive about people changing their food diets and hopefully looking at food as medicine or food as health. And I really feel as though, the pandemic has really made us focus about our health and how science has really helped us in terms of medicine. But then also there's this traditional thing called food, which we interact with multiple times a day, which is certainly a huge part of our lives, and that we've had, I guess, more time, as you said, with your daughter to cook that zucchini loaf and other meals, I'm sure. And those skills and memories will stay with her forever, and hopefully that leads to positive food changes for your family.
Well, Thanh, you
mentioned, and many others.
You mentioned food as medicine, and I'm so glad you did, because it gives me a seamless segue into introducing a familiar face to me, at least. He's probably a familiar face to you as well, Dr. Norman Swan, my co-host with Coronacast at the Health Report, and a whiz in the kitchen.
Yeah, you've never been in this kitchen, Tegan. This is where it all happens.
Well, this is your chance to sell me on why I should come and visit you one day when I'm allowed to come back to New South Wales. What are you cooking? What's on your toasty?
Well, I'm going to break with tradition because I'm not a fan of toasties. Can I say that on the show? So
send him off.
So one of the things that was risky. One of the things that I've been trying to do during lockdown is perfect the French omelette.
Amazing.
stimulated by I think it was 2,000 word piece in the New Yorker just devoted to the French omelette. And there's lots of stuff if you go on the internet. And of course, in the New Yorker, the first step is go to this farm in the Dordogne to get your eggs. So that's a bit hard.
So did you do that?
No. So I just go to my local supermarket, but I do buy organic eggs. So look, everybody's going to write in and say they can do it better. But I know the theory, and will we get it right? So first thing with the egg, it's got to be room temperature. Second thing is you don't bang it on the edge of the bowl. You bang it on flat, and then you break it in. And then the French chefs get all the last egg white out of the shell. And they'll probably do it with 3. I'm just going to do it with 2 because I'm mean. And you get the white out, and you get the white out there. So it's all maximum egg white because that gives you a base. You get a little bit of salt. Now, they would do it with white pepper because you actually don't want any flecks in it, but I'm going to do it with black pepper. And then, of course, the real French omelette has chives, parsley, and some herbs. Now, here's the key implement for a French omelette, a fork. That is all you use. And you just, you mix it through so that all the albumin gets mixed through so that you don't have too much loose albumin, but you don't whip it up so that there's lots of froth in it. So that's the mixture, probably a little bit more than that. And then, sorry, National Heart Foundation, one has to use butter. But in my defense, and if you read my book, you'll realize there's not a lot of evidence that full fat dairy does you any harm.
I can't tell you how grateful I am to hear that. I love butter.
So that's, I've got to be a bit wider than that. So I'm just going to get this a bit. So you've got to get butter in the pan. Now the key with a French omelette. Now Truong knows much more about this than me. He's been very modest and was giving me a bit of a tutorial beforehand. But the thing about a French omelette is that it's not browned. It's actually got to be light yellow to be perfect. This is where I will fail. But remember, my only implement is the fork. This is like a high wire event here.
I'm just waiting for the sizzle as it hits the pan. That's the noise I want to hear.
There shouldn't be too much sizzle. That's the key, you see.
Just a low hiss. What sort of noise are we breaking?
Just a low hiss. There's too much. Somebody just started working on an apartment nearby as I started, so there's a lot of background noise. Okay, so I'm getting the smell of the butter, so it's getting close. And pour this in. Now here's the key, is that you've actually got to agitate it quite a lot with the fork. I probably should have put in an extra egg. I'm just making an excuse for myself now. But you shake it a lot, and so unlike a more American style omelette where you pull in the edges, this one you just agitate a lot, and you don't want to cook it too much. Because the good French omelette is a bit gooey in the middle.
So, Norman, I'm going to ask you to multitask while you're perfecting something that sounds notoriously difficult to cook. Yeah. Talk to us about what to expect over the next couple of months. What's going to be normal and what's going to not go back to normal straight away?
I just think that we think it's going to go back to normal, but it's actually not. It's what we're talking about here is, sorry, this is a key moment. Can I just interrupt myself here? You've got to get it to the edge, and then I'm not very good at this bit, but you've got to flip it back over. And you can see that I've almost got the French omelette there. It's almost done. The key here is that we are going to go backwards and forwards a little bit. It will get scary from time to time as we get more and more cases. And it will rise, and we'll have to go back to what we had before. And if we open up too much, it'll be a bit of a wrench. I don't think we'll go back to lockdown. We've got great vaccination rates, but there still will be restrictions in order to control it. And remember, little kids aren't covered yet. They will need to be covered when they get immunized. So compared to lockdown, we're going to be in great shape. We're going to have a great Christmas. But we may have to wear masks indoors, but watch out for ventilation, that sort of thing. And it can't compare to the lockdown that Victoria's had, or even that New South Wales has had.
What about families who have people overseas? Like, are we going to be able to see that kind of easy international travel coming back in the next few months?
Well, the first thing I did when the announcement was made of international travel is I booked an incredibly expensive fare to Washington to see my new granddaughter. But luckily now my son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter are coming here. So that's going to make an enormous difference. It's very expensive at the moment for people to do that, but there's just going to be this enormous demand. So yes, that's going to make a huge difference to people.
And one of the things that we've had as a benefit in Australia is that we've gotten to see what's happened overseas before we've had to bite certain bullets, to torture a phrase. What's the rest of the world telling us about reopening?
Well, if you look at Denmark, which is possibly closer to us, they've quite high vaccination rates, opened up completely on the 10th of September, and they got rid of their vaccine passports and so on. And they're seeing quite a significant rise in cases and thinking about going back to some restrictions, because the hospitalizations are going up as well. We're going to have a higher immunization rate than Denmark. If you look at Iceland, they had a very high immunization rate, but a huge spike in cases after they opened up, and that's settled down. Portugal's doing quite well. But Italy is an interesting example. They are very regionalized, moving in and out of controls and really trying to keep a little bit with nuanced controls around the place. So we'll find our own way, but we shouldn't delude ourselves that 90% coverage 12 plus is a passport to complete freedom, unfortunately, because there are going to be gaps in the community.
Yeah, it's this new normal everyone's talking about. We sort of keep banding this phrase around like new normal, but no one's actually, the definition of what that actually looks like is sort of emerging quite slowly.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll find our own way, but it won't be complete freedom. There will be restrictions required. And, as we just heard, people are nervous about coming out. I've been nervous about going to the gym and haven't gone. I'm really quite pleased about that at the moment. Because you can catch the infection there.
Speaking of things to be nervous about, I'm nervous that your omelette's no good and that you're not going to show it to us. Can we have a look?
Well, it's not perfect, but this is the right color.
It's beautiful. Have you got anything to serve it with? What do you have with an omelette?
Well, I have the baguette.
Oh. Bene. That's Italian. What do the French say? Bon.
Yeah. No, I have the baguette. But as Thanh was saying, that's a very poorly shaped omelette. I need to do better than that. Probably I need another couple of eggs in there to really get the effect.
Yeah, lift your game. I mean, don't give up your day job.
No, not yet. I think Tran clearly knows how to do this, but he got stuck on the toasty line.
Thanh, I want you to come back and give us a mark out of 10, please, for Dr. Norman Swan's effort at a French omelette.
Norman, I'm going to give you a 10 out of 10 for effort, a 6 out of 10 for execution. However, I think the camera has made you a little bit shy, but I love the technicality and that you've gone and actually learnt how to make that omelette. It's actually one of the most difficult omelettes to make. Now, Jacques Pepin really technically does it really well, makes it look really easy. But if you YouTube the French cooking guy, he breaks it down into 10 steps, and that will really help you. But I was obsessed with the omelette a couple of years back, and I'm so glad that you've cooked that omelette. There was a movie called The 100-Foot Journey, and it's about there's so many themes in it, but at the core of it is chefs have to cook an omelette as like a passageway to getting the role. And I was completely obsessed with making an omelette. I think I cracked thousands of eggs within that short period, but no, you've done really, really well. I would eat that egg.
I love how
that baguette too.
I love how lockdowns have brought out the obsessive side in so many of us, like the omelette, the sourdough. But Thanh, I wanted to ask you, we're coming up to Christmas, hopefully to spend with family. Tell us about what fruits are going to be on our Christmas tables this year.
All right. So right now you've got to get stuck into mangoes. It is the peak of the mango season. There's a lot of variety, but heading towards Christmas, you have to eat cherries. Cherries are my all-time favorite fruit because when you find a cherry that's sour, juicy, sweet, and it's got that tang. But most importantly, the most important factor for me as a fruiterer, and now I watch fruit every day for 10 hours. I sort through fruit. I see fruit from around the world. I study fruit, is the moreish factor. So if you can eat a piece of cherry and you just want to keep eating, that is the number one umami factor for me in the fruit world. So stone fruit, particularly cherries. Now, my tip for everybody is if you can find like a 1 or 2 kilogram gift box, generally speaking, they're graded much better because they get into a different pool of grading, which is often for export, and they generally not only look better, but they actually taste better. So that is my tip for everybody for Christmas. Go get your cherries and indulge.
A big deciding factor for me when choosing cherries is if they have enough of them where there's 2 together so that I can wear them like earrings. Remember, if you want help with your mental health, you can call Lifeline on 13 11 14, 24/7, or the other helplines that we've got in the comments. Thank you so much to Tan and Norman for getting a bit silly with me today. And thank you all. If you want to keep on going with the conversation on ABC platforms, use #Toastie Talks and keep sharing your great toasty ideas.